Good afternoon, monkeys. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good night, whatever time it is when you're watching this video. Welcome to another installment of our RCT Classic series here for iPad. Yeah, we got a pretty good next two episodes. Today we're going to release two episodes back to back, both pertaining to the ghost town that we're building here. Yeah, there's been a lot of buzz about this one online. I want to thank you guys for showing your interest, and we're going to get right into it. So here we are, just building up the berm around the outside of the area and throwing up some cacti and some bushes. I really found doing this video in this particular area to be a lot of fun. Something I like doing is I like taking something and creating it from nothing, right? Hence, obviously, this game and the whole idea of it. And what I was able to do is take the in-game Western houses and pieces and whatnot and create my own version of them and elaborate on it, which you're going to see in a little bit. For here, what I'm doing is building out a little bit of a canyon area. Think about Canyon Blaster or the Runaway Mine Train, or the Disney Mine Train. You know, you got quite a few different options there that you could take your inspiration from. But that was kind of the idea here. And what I did was I pulled up these square blocks, 4x4, and I rounded off the edges so it feels like giant boulders. Gives a really great look, I think, overall to the environment. And again, it's just another way for you to do rock work, right? So as I did there, I built a little bit of a square outside of the ride, and you'll tend to see in your theme parks different square areas around like a major themed ride and whatnot. So for this one here, what I do is I pulled, your basic facilities as well as your 4 major stands, and I've created a different color for each section. I don't know if you guys have picked up on that yet, but my guests all carry different color balloons. Depending on what balloons they're carrying and whatever I see in multitude within my guests, I'm able to get an idea of where they are in my park and where the most popular areas are in my park. So I thought that was a pretty cool idea. This area is brown, in case you haven't picked up on that yet. And there's a few brown t-shirts and brown balloons floating around out there. But yeah, so one of the things that I was thinking about as I was building this area out is, how do I make this monorail fit in, right? Because a monorail really doesn't fit in with, your old frontier type or Western type area. So what I wound up doing is I basically covered it up wherever I could. And as you see there, just like I did on the other side, the mining side, I created my own trellis work underneath from a support standpoint. And that gives a really great rustic feel. Now, as for the mine train itself, as it's riding in and out of, these different areas and sections, what I decided to do was, again, create different trellis work, different raised areas directly underneath the track. And the premise behind this is to give just a different feel for your ride, right? So I could have built these buildings directly into the mountainside, but then I lose the trellis work, right? And that was the intention I wanted to go after. I wanted it to feel very pre-industrial, but borderline industrial, Western town-esque. Think very Back to the Future Part 3. If you haven't seen it, I recommend go seeing it. It's one of my favorite series from the 80s. Not that you care what my favorite things are, but you know what I mean. So, yeah, as I continue here, again, I'm just trying to figure out different ways that I could create little bridges that go underneath and over and around. This way, your mine train, as it's sleeking in and out, it's not just going through the support structures for the ride, but have their own individual bridges, and whatnot, to give a very different feel. So I was kind of debating there what to do, and I wound up taking that out. But I like what I do here next, and this actually bleeds into some of our theming that we create here for the mine area, or for the Western area. And the premise behind this is I wanted to create, a mixture of industrialized metal with, your old rustic wood type feel of buildings. And again, to really hide that monorail as much as possible, the bright pink definitely sticks out. But I don't want to change the pink, right? That's the main color, quote unquote, of our park, right? But by building this, it almost looks like there's like a factory-esque kind of feel going on there, or pre-industrial or borderline industrial manufacturing area. So here I am throwing down just some examples of the houses. And if you notice, in my western area, I really didn't use these much at all. And I spent a lot of time building my own facades. And that's what I want to challenge you guys out there to do. You know, build your own facades, do your own thing. You know, I see a lot of different creators out there, and not knocking it at all. I love the work that's done. But I see a lot of creators out there that have the self-made stuff where, you know, I guess they created on like different programs or whatever. I like to use what's in the game. You know, it's different. It creates a different feel. And by using what you have in the game, you get to create, you know, different stuff by using your imagination. And that's what this game is about, right? How do you use that imagination to the best of your ability? So as we build out these facades here, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the front of these buildings here and saying, okay, well, how do I want to do this? What do I want it to look like? You'll see here I throw up, just like in that middle building and off to the right there, I throw up a little balcony area. And again, these are just facades, right? That's what we want them to be, nothing more. They're not actually housing anything other than these, you know, 4 facility buildings. Here I'm playing with different ideas of kind of what can I do for a really good balcony, fence or border or whatever. You know, it's just so many different options that I wanted to play around a little bit, you know. So now, since we're building out just facades here, I close off the back of this area really easily. You know, again, super simple, just throw up some quick, you know, rear walls going up. And I raise up the land there, so this way, as the coaster is going past, it's not looking at a big, you know, boring wooden wall, right? See, now for our queue, you know, I think this is probably the most themed queue I've done so far in this particular area. And I'm actually super proud of that. You know, it plays in with the entire aesthetic of the ride. You know, as you're walking through that themed queue, you know, it really builds up that anticipation. And if I remember correctly, the ride was running at a high 6, low 7 for excitement rating, if I remember correctly. You'll see at the end of the series here for our western area, and because we're also going to do our lakefront as well, and that'll be the 3rd video that I'll post tomorrow, but you're going to see a really great video as it rolls through in and out of the area, and you get to see the excitement rating jumps all the way up to high 8s, which is super exciting. And here we wound up using just those wooden posts as the borders. And I think, if I remember correctly, because I filmed this a couple days ago, or a few days ago, that we do this around this whole area, just within the western part. Well, I love what I do here. So I build out this building, and then I build one behind it on the opposite side of the train. So as the train rides through, it's rushing through these buildings, creates a really great, you know, near-miss element, and increases that excitement rating even further. Again, throwing those different theming pieces inside that building. Yeah, we don't see them, but it increases the ride's overall excitement rating. Yeah, and I was going to use the canvas there, and I was like, you know what? No, let me not. I'm gonna keep it all wood. You know, we did enough canvas in the other areas, right? Look at that already. I already love how it looks. All right, now something else to be mindful here too. Even though we are not doing the alpine type feel, we definitely want to add different types of shrubbery through here. We want to add some cacti, as we did a little bit earlier. Again, we want it to feel mountainous but sparse, and that's the kind of look that we're going for. I think very, high in the mountains of Arizona, or southern Colorado. I was going to throw those in. I was like, you know what? No. So I want to keep just the inside of this just very specific, right? So I use these smaller trees, and I think this gives a very bush-like feel. Like we're out in the brush in Australia. That was such a horrible accent. And again, now going at the whole idea of facades, I love what I do here. And I hope you guys dig it as well. So I create out just this border wall to cover up this turnaround area, and I decided to make 4 or 5 different facades, 3 or 4 different facades I think I did here. And now what made me choose the colors that I choose? Well, I think about that time in that era and kind of what they had at their disposal. They didn't have latex paint with chemical colors, right? They had dyes and whitewashes that were made with, natural resources or whatever they could to dye, their coloring or their wood or whatever the case may be. So that's what I used here. These kind of like muted, flatter colors, not necessarily anything that'd be too bright or too, in your face. And that was the whole intention I was going for with this here. You notice I use this there's mossy green, I use the brown, I use the light brown, I use almost like a muted pink. I guess you can say, I would call it like a muted pink, I think, is probably the best term I would use for it. And then again, with my characters, just throw them just behind that fence post, post fence. And and they're right there, right in front, just doing their thing, right? And again, this is a completely closed off little bridge I've created for this monorail. So we're gonna build out the facade, and then we're gonna come around and build out the rest of what that roof is gonna look like. And you'll see in the next episode, that's actually how we wind up building out the entire food area as well. We create a massive food court, and we build out the food court in the center, and we build it from the outside in, and then throw that roof on the center. So that's what I want you to be mindful of, as you're doing this. We've talked about this a number of times when it comes to building your buildings. It gets very easy to get lost in the sauce, if you will, because of the lack of depth perception. They overlay really easily, and you lose kind of where you are in your building. So take your time, go slow. This 19-minute video here, this is over an hour of work. And that's something I want you to be mindful of. Take your time, go slow. It isn't a race, right? I always say it about this game. It truly is a marathon, right? You're going to take your time and really choose your pieces correctly, and again, go with the flow. Go with what you feel is right, what you like. Don't try to mimic anyone else's aesthetic or Don't try to copy anybody. At the end of the day, just do what makes you feel good and how you like it. You know, I'm giving these tips and these tricks to you for you guys to get some ideas from. I'm not looking to have you, oh, this is the way that I do it, so you guys copy what I do. No, that's not the intention here at all, right? It really comes down to having you just open up your ability to create and give you a little bit more ammunition. All right, and here we are and adding in the facades, if you will, of our first part of the ride. And I would almost call this like a pre-show, if you will. The ride exits out of the station. It goes through this little like enclosed ghost town, and it goes up into the lift hill. So I wanted this to be super fun, super tight, right? I wanted it to feel very enclosed, very, very like, oh my God, I'm on a train in the Midwest or the Old West, and you know, I'm riding along, and then boom, we go right into this lift hill and we go on this massive, you know, expedition through the Ozarks or whatever, you know. Again, my imagination ran wild with it, and that's how you have to do this. Just let your imagination run. So now, obviously here, you're going to run into a lot of that depth perception issue, right? Because we're only building out the facades and we're doing it in a 360-degree view. So what I kept doing is, as you see, I spin the camera back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And by doing that, I'm able to keep in mind of where I'm building. Now, mind you, you see what I'm doing. As I'm building this out, I'm building out the entire interior wall, which are all facades and supposed to look like different buildings. And then once I build out the interior walls, I then build out the roof system around it on the outside, and then I build out the exterior walls, right? So we're working from the inside out. Yeah, I think this is the first time I used one of the pre-mades, and it was a perfect fit. Now, a lot of you might be asking, why isn't he using any of the Indian pieces or the Native American pieces? Just you wait. I've got a couple of cool ideas coming up in the future for that. And again, I've always, I love Native American architecture and artwork. If anybody who knows me really well, I'm super spiritual and believe in a lot of their belief systems. And, I don't think that this game represented them very well, in my opinion. But, it is what it is. It's a video game. So with that being said, what I did was I created a couple cool rides and a couple cool areas. You really had the white men come through and kind of overrun and create these towns of whatever, but then you've had the Indians that, they're spread all throughout the mountains and all throughout the ranges, right? So I did have some pretty cool ideas for that. I give them a central area in the middle and have them work through some of the mountain ranges as well as you're riding through on that mine train. Now, what do we think the name of this ride should be? It's you're in the Old West. You're on an expedition ride out of the ghost town out of the Old West town into the mountains and through the canyons, and what do we want to call this ride? I'm putting it on you guys. I asked some of you guys on Facebook or whatever, but I'm gonna leave it up to you. With that being said, guys, thanks so much for watching. Wait up for part 2, which is coming up next. Check it out.